Good morning. Welcome to Alki United Church of Christ on this second Sunday in the season of Lent. Lent is the time that we set aside in the church year to reflect, to listen, and to wonder as we come closer to the mystery of Easter. Our theme is Wandering Heart, and we're focusing on the life and faith of one of Jesus's most famous disciples, Simon Peter. In Peter, we see a person who is both steadfast and unsteady, a dear friend and a betrayer, a follower and a wanderer. In Peter, we often see ourselves. By following Peter's journey, we watch the story of Jesus unfold through the eyes of a very normal person, a human trying to figure it all out, just like us. And Peter's story reminds us that God loves imperfect people. In fact, time and again, that's precisely who God calls. Today, we see the story of Peter come to life through the gift of the spiritual travelers. Thank you so much for sharing your gifts with us today and letting us go even deeper into this connection with Peter and allowing us some time to consider how our lives might intersect with Peter's. You may have noticed on your way in this morning that our pride flags are gone. They were stolen. Again, this has happened before. It happened also last August. Notable to me this time is that it was one of our neighbors who noticed it first. And brought it to our attention as such a sad occurrence. And it reminded me that our affirming presence is really important to this neighborhood, not only to us. It's about everybody. And at this time, it's more important than ever. The ACLU is currently tracking 452 anti-LGBTQ bills in our country. 452, and updating that every day. There's a huge effort underway to question the inherent worth of children of God. But our worth is not up for debate. This legislation is wrong. It's life and death. We'll replace our flags, and we'll keep reminding the queer community in West Seattle and beyond that they are loved beyond imagining. Let us breathe in the peace of God, the light of love. We acknowledge that we are on the unceded traditional land of the Coast Salish people, including the Duwamish and the Suquamish people, past and present. We honor with gratitude the land itself and these tribes who are still here. Wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you have a place here at Alki UCC.
Good morning. We'd like to invite you to accompany us on a journey back through time and space to the 1st century AD, a time when life was hard and luxury unknown, to Capernaum, a village on the eastern shore of the Sea of Galilee, where the terrain is rugged and the soil as dry as desert sands. Our story weaves together 3 scriptural stories of Simon Peter's encounters with Jesus.
My name is Simon, or Peter, or Simon Peter to be exact. You'll hear more about that a little bit later. I'm a simple man, not given to complex thoughts, nor prone to impulsive action, although I have thoughts at times of being a wanderer. I'm pretty much what you would call a family man, or at least I was until Jesus came along. I had a brother to fish with, a wife to come home to at night, and a couple of kids. I worked hard, and I was pretty much happy with my life. You ask, how could I have given all that up? How could I have just taken off like that? Taken off with an itinerant rabbi of all things? I honestly don't know what to tell you.
I am Andrew, Simon's younger brother. Sometimes I come off as a little brash or even impetuous, all the things my brother is not. I can be impatient, and I admit at times my passions can run high. My name is unusual among the Hebrew people, for it is Greek. The name means courageous. And as my name is unusual and different, I try to think differently and think courageously for myself. I'm a fisherman, as our father before us. As I mend the nets and as I cast the nets for fish, as I haul in the fish, I'm working in my body, but in my mind, I'm often thinking about and wondering about the great truths of life. For some time now, I've listened to the truth teachings of the wilderness prophet they called John the Baptist. In truth, I've been a follower of this great reformer for some time. When John proclaimed Jesus, the Lamb of God, I felt chills of confirmation run down my spine. My whole body flushed, and I felt I was walking on air. So immediately, I went with Jesus and spent the rest of the day with him. Within the short time I spent with Jesus, the truth of who he truly was dawned on me and enveloped me. And the joy and peace that came upon me overwhelmed me.
We are not alone. 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 We are not alone.
Wait up, I've got to talk to you.
Andrew, what in the world has you so fired up? Slow down, you're all out of breath. You're gonna give yourself a heart attack. I don't have time to stop and talk right now. I have to finish mending the nets and get them rolled back up before dusk sets in. Remember, we agreed we'd leave a little before dawn tomorrow morning. Why don't you come with me and we can talk along the way?
Yeah, Peter, wait. You've got to hear me out. I've got to tell you about what happened yesterday. It's important, Peter. Lucas and I, we're staying at the house where John is staying, on the steps outside the house. And suddenly John said, "Do you see that guy over there? He's the Messiah we've been waiting for." I'm afraid I challenged John. I said, "Come on, John, how can you possibly know that?" John looked me straight in the eye and said, "Because the Almighty has revealed it to me." I kid you not, Peter, that's exactly what John said. He said it was like the most natural thing in the world that the Almighty would reveal things to him. How in the world could he believe that? I know John's a prophet, and I respect that, but aren't there limits to their powers to see things that the rest of us can't see?
That's all very interesting, Andrew, but I've got to get going. I'm running out of time. Are you coming with me or not?
Now, Peter, please hear me out. There's more. When we heard what John said, Lucas and I looked at each other, and there was no need to say anything. We just got up and started to follow this stranger, at a respectful distance, of course. As we were walking along, This man Jesus suddenly stopped, looked over his shoulder, and called out to us, "What are you guys up to? I noticed that you've been following me for quite a while. You've got my curiosity up." Lucas spoke right up. "Rabbi, we're wondering where you're staying." Jesus just smiled and said, "Well, come along with me and see for yourself." Well, that broke the ice. We closed the distance between us and moved right up alongside him. Together, the three of us continued onto the place where he was lodging. Almost immediately, we were lost in conversation. Before we knew it, the rest of the afternoon had passed. It just flew by. And Peter, John is right. I'm convinced of it. This man is the Messiah. You must come with me to hear him for yourself.
Kind people, I ask you, what should I do? Andrew is insistent that I come with him. He's actually pleading with me. That's not something I'm used to coming from him. He keeps saying, "You've got to meet this man. You've got to hear what he has to say."
John is right. I know he's right. This man is the Redeemer we've been waiting for, the one we've longed for. I'm convinced of it. Every bone in my body tells me it's true.
So you hear how compelling my brother's words are, how urgent his manner is. I have to go with him. I simply have to go with him. I know that the nets need tent mending. There's so much work to be done. It's urgent work. How can I take the day off just to humor my little brother?
Not alone. We are not alone. We are not alone. God is with us. We are not alone. We are not alone. We are not alone. God is with us.
Happy to know that I did give in and I went with Andrew. When we located Jesus, Andrew and I headed straight toward him. Without Jesus taking his eyes from what he was working on, he spoke to me. "You're Simon, but soon you'll be called Peter." What the heck is he talking about? But that was how the afternoon, an unbelievable afternoon, began. By the time the day ended, even though I couldn't quite put my finger on it, I knew that Andrew was right. There was something different about Jesus. Different. Not alarming, just different. There was a tenderness in his eyes and a gentleness about him, but at the same time, a sense of assuredness and authority as well. I had this overwhelming sense that in him,
We are not alone. We are not alone. We are not alone. God is with us. We are not alone. We are not alone. We are not alone. God is with us.
not many days later, when my brother and Andrew and I were there preparing our nets for the next day, we suddenly spotted Jesus coming down the shore in our direction. Was he coming to see us? Well, it didn't take very long for us to find out. After just a few pleasantries, he came right out with it. "Come, Peter, come follow me. If you and Andrew come with me, I will make you fishers of men."
Let's go down to the water to pray. Let's go down to the water to pray. Let's go down to the water to pray. Let's go down to pray. I'm Simon's wife, Leah. Now, I know the scripture does not name me, but I refuse to be nameless here. I'm strong when I need to be, and yes, independent as women need to be in this time. I love and I'm in love with my husband, and I know he feels the same way toward me. I am so blown away by his departure. I am beside myself. My world is upended. I am most afraid for the security of my home, my children, and my mother, Rachel, who now lives with us. You see, without a male to keep us safe, we are all at risk. How could Simon do this? You know the Romans are occupying our land, right? And we Jews, we are not safe. It is scary and violent. So, when I got up that morning, Simon was already down at the shore preparing the nets, like they always do for a day of fishing. There was a note left for me in this little crack by the door where he usually leaves like a little love note for me. You know what that note said? Gone fishing. Gone fishing? Now, I know Simon is a man of few words, but he's a thoughtful man, and he would never, ever give me cause to worry. So when he wasn't home by dusk, I thought I'd head down to the shore to meet him. And then maybe we could walk home together, have a chat, maybe a quiet dinner together, because Mother's put the kids to bed. But I was not prepared for what I found at the shore. There was Simon's boat, and alongside his boat was James and John's boat. You know, the cousins? Their boat was there too, but they were nowhere to be found. I looked all over, up and down the shore, calling for them. They were nowhere to be found. And then Zebedee, John and James's father, came out to me and said, those darn fool sons of mine, they just up and left, gone with this Jesus fella. And not only them, but Simon and Andrew too. I tried to reason with those lads, but nope, they turned a deaf ear to me. And I asked, well, what do you mean? What do you mean, gone off with Jesus? When will they be back? Zebedee just shook his head. He just said, you know, no idea where they've gone off and no idea when they'll be back. His disciples is what Jesus said. I guess they've gone off to be his disciples.
I am Rachel, Leah's mother, and Simon's mother-in-law. I have lived with them and their children since my own husband died. So I knew that Rachel had been gone a very long time. I was starting to get worried. It was dusk when she walked in the door. "Where's Simon?" I asked her.
Oh, Mother, I have something to tell you, but you better sit down.
My son-in-law. What's happened to my son-in-law? Was there an accident?
Calm down, Mother. Just give me a chance. I will tell you what little bit I know. Okay, so what I've been told is this guy, Jesus, you know, that rabbi that we've been hearing the rumors about? He came along and asked Simon and Andrew and James and John just to go with him. Just go. So according to Zebedee, they just laid down their nets and off they went. Just gone. And I just can't understand it. What in the name were they thinking?
As far as I can see, none of them were thinking, at least not rationally. They really just cast everything away as though it had no meaning at all. I can't believe it. What will happen to us, Leah? We have no way to earn a living, and you have 2 kids to feed. And what about Zebedee? It must have been a crushing blow for him and his wife, my good friend Golda.
I am Golda, Zebedee's wife and John and James are my sons too. And Zebedee is telling me that they just are gone, just like that. They dropped everything and left. Do they have any idea what they're throwing away? Their father worked his entire life to build up this fishing business for them. He wanted to give them some security in their lives, something Zebedee and I never had. Stupid. How can they be so darn stupid? How can Zebedee keep the business afloat without them to help? He's an old man. I watch his knees buckle whenever he puts weight on them. I see him wince in pain whenever he tries to lift the nets. Did they think about the load they were leaving him with? Obviously not.
What are we to do? What am I to do? Suddenly I feel so alone. Wait, what am I saying? I am alone.
When we left the shore that day, we headed out into the countryside of Galilee. Wherever we went, the news seemed to travel ahead of us, and people brought out anybody and everyone to be healed, anyone with an ailment at all. It didn't matter if it was mental, emotional, or physical. Jesus healed them all. He healed every last one of them. After what must have been a few months, our journey brought us back into the territory of Galilee. It was well after dusk when we reached the outskirts of Capernaum. We woke at dawn to the morning light of the Sabbath, and Jesus lost no time in getting to the meeting place at the temple where he spent the day teaching. All those there seemed surprised at his teachings. He was so forthright, so confident. There was no quibbling or endless quoting like the religious scholars that we knew. As you can imagine, news of this traveled like lightning and was soon all over Galilee. Leaving the meeting place, we all headed to Simon and Leah's house, along with our cousins, James and John. There we discovered Simon Peter's mother-in-law, gravely ill, in bed, burning with fever. When Jesus heard this, he went to her and without a word, took her hand and raised her up. No sooner had he done this, but the fever left her, and she was up fixing dinner for them.
I can't explain it. 1 minute, I was so sick, shivering with cold, and not even able to lift my head. And the next, I felt someone touch my hand, and I opened my eyes and saw that the Rabbi, Jesus, was helping me to sit up. I immediately felt fine and was surprised to see so many people witnessing my miraculous healing. I was so grateful, and as they all looked so startled and like they probably needed to be fed, I just got up and started cooking so we could all share a meal.
Oh, Rachel, Jesus merely touched your hand, and we could see the fever leave you. It was like you didn't even remember how sick you'd been only a few moments before. How did you get your strength back so quickly? We had heard of other healings, but this one we saw with our own eyes, and you experienced it. It truly was a miracle. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm
Now I understand. I understand why Simon was compelled to follow him. I didn't understand back then. Oh, I was beside myself. I was bitter and resentful. But I understand now. The magnetism and power of that man could only come from above. The message of God's kingdom on earth, Jesus brings that to the people. It must come to the people. Truly, he is the Messiah. He is the Messiah we have waited for, we have longed for. And if I could follow him, I would too.
Go down to the water to pray. Let's go down to the water to pray. Let's go down to the water to pray. Let's go down to the water to pray.
One night, after we'd finished for the day, a messenger arrived with the news that John the Baptist had been beheaded. Jesus was grief-stricken, as we all were. Just desperate for some quiet time, alone to privately sort out his thoughts and sit with his grief, Jesus took us with him and headed for the remote northeast shore of Galilee. Somehow, word got out ahead of him and spread faster than flames fueled by the summer's scorching winds. Hearing that Jesus was in the area, the people headed out of their homes in hopes of intercepting Jesus as he sailed up the sea. As you can imagine, throngs of people were there, covering the banks. As always, when Jesus saw those on the shore, he was moved with compassion and asked us to bring the boat ashore so he could minister to the crowd. All afternoon, he touched one person after another, till the number who had received healing numbered about 3,000. At dusk, after a hastily prepared meal was shared, the crowd began to disperse. And Jesus came to us and insisted that all of us get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side. He said he needed some time to be with himself and pray, and he left us.
So we were far out to sea when the wind suddenly came up, and we began to be battered by very strong waves. We stayed awake all night and on high alert, and in the darkness just before dawn, we saw a silhouette walking on the water toward us. As you can imagine, we were terrified and we started to scream.
It's a ghost.
Then we saw the figure of Jesus emerging from the looming shadow. Ever compassionate, Jesus was quick to comfort us. Come on, you of little faith. There's nothing to be afraid of. Where's your courage? It's just me. Well, hearing his voice, I was compelled by the need to go be with him. Master, if it's really you, call me to you on the water. Come ahead, Peter. Well, jumping out of the boat, I started to walk toward Jesus. It went smoothly at first, but then I made the mistake of looking down at the waves churning beneath my feet. And I started to sink. Master, save me! Jesus didn't hesitate. Instead of scolding me for my lack of faith, he simply reached down and offered me his hand. Oh my goodness, Peter. What got into you? Without waiting for an answer, he helped me climb back into the boat, and at once, the wind died down.
The rest of our group in the boat, having watched the whole thing, worship Jesus, saying, we now know he truly is the Messiah who has been sent to us. Our faith has been restored.